Hello there, guys. Welcome back to the podcast or video, whichever way you're watching this. Very thankful to be back with you. Thankful for anybody who will take the time to listen and allow me to speak a little bit into your situation or encourage you in some way. Hopefully, you do find my content encouraging and at least empowering in some way. There's a lot of negativity out there on the interwebs, especially because it is so easy to be negative. Negativity comes very easily to most of us. And it takes very little effort to be negative. It takes a lot of effort to be positive and try to check your emotions and, not trade insult for insult. I was actually I commented on a video recently on Instagram, and a couple of people who were commenting were giving some assertions, and I just questioned the assertions in a kind way. Just like, hey, I don't understand. Can you provide some evidence for this? And apparently some people just really do not like their word, not their information not being questioned at all. That's what they want. They want that. So questioning people apparently nowadays is insulting or violence, apparently. So the act of learning has become insulting to people. I did my best to stay positive and be a Christian in that situation. I did not allow that person to just insult me and, whatever, but I was very positive with them and just, did my best. So I will admit that sometimes when you engage with people in this way, even myself, I find it very easy to kind of trade blows with them. But if we're going to engage in this culture nowadays, we have to operate with honor, operate with a sense of higher purpose, and to do our best to, you know, not be walked on necessarily, but also do you don't want to be walked on, but you want to do your best to honor your position and honor what you believe. So, yeah, sometimes it's probably just best to stay out the comments because most people don't know how to use it well. Comments are for adults. So if you can't do that, I mean, probably stay out. But I will admit I don't always get it right. But that brings me to what I'd like to share today, at least from the scripture. A little bit about honor. Honor is something that our culture, we don't really have much of anymore. Well, I mean, it seems like we don't. I don't want to be hyperbolic when I say that. It just seems like we don't honor the traditions of our fathers. We don't honor those who are older than us or those who are more experienced than us. We tend to think that because we can comment or we have an opinion that it is equals to someone who has an informed opinion, or we just many times we don't behave ourselves with honor towards others or towards institutions, even like the president. I have been convicted recently about, I realized that the president we have right now is maybe not the president that I would want. And some of his foibles and shortcomings are very obvious and easy to capitalize on. It's easy fruit to pick. You know what I mean? It's a low hanging, but I'm realizing that I need to have honor for the position. So that's something I'm working on, and I need to honor the Lord in what I say and how I treat other people. So I was thinking about honor, and I came to the scripture from Second Samuel, no, actually First Samuel chapter 2, verse 30, and it's where the prophet is coming to the high priest Eli, and Eli has been allowing his sons to kind of run amok and do whatever they want. They're not really honoring the Lord. They're not honoring the position they're in, and they're not honoring God um, in their works and how they serve Him. And this chapter can be quite heavy, honestly. But there's one verse that stands out in this verse, chapter 2, verse 30. At the end of the verse, he says, "For them that honor me, I will honor, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed." So I'm thinking of this in the sense of it's like God saying, if you'll honor me in your everyday actions and how you treat people, how you treat your body, how you treat others, how you interact with other people, then he will honor you. So if you honor the Lord, because you know, like sometimes if somebody insults you or you're going through a situation and other people are not acting honorable, we feel like, you know, we should lower ourselves to their standard. But I really feel like if I'm living for the Lord, if I'm living for Jesus, then whatever I do is meant to honor him, and how I act reflects on the honor that I have for him and his position in my life. So I think we should realize that when we act with honor, the Lord will honor you. And I believe that comes down to your faith, and I believe that comes down to your physical health as well. When you honor your body, you honor the Lord with your health, meaning you're placing the calling he has on your life at a high level because you honor him. And then you take the time to sow into your health and make better decisions, try to learn, try to start acquiring the skills of health, because health is a skill at this point. If you just look around at our environments, you have to be very skillful in today's culture to be healthy. You have to be learned and you have to be experienced. So it is a skill set that you have to have. And I believe that trying to learn that so that you can take care of your body, so that you can honor the Lord with your health and your body, the Lord will honor those pursuits and honor that leaning of your heart, right? So let me just encourage you today. Um, you can honor, right? And you don't honor other people because they are honorable. You honor other people because the Lord is honorable and he has created people in his image. So we should do our best to honor others. And then also, you have been created in his image and given a purpose. You have been given a call, something that he needs you to fulfill. So you should honor that call and that purpose by investing in your own health, in your own mental health, your well being. You should be honoring the Lord with your body to the best of your ability. Okay. So let me just encourage you. He is worth the time spent taking care of yourself, and you will benefit from making sure that you honor him, because he says, if you honor me, I will honor you. And he says, those that despise me, and sometimes in the scripture, the word despise doesn't necessarily mean like a hatred, the way we use it in the English language now. It could literally be just a dismissal. He says, those who basically dismiss me will be lightly esteemed, meaning they just really won't catch his attention very much, right? So they just really won't be focused on. So when we don't honor the Lord in our actions, we literally take ourselves out of the path of blessing, out of the path of being honored, and we put ourselves in the path of those who are thought less, like just not going to spend much time thinking about them because they're not doing what's necessary, right? So that might sound a little heavy, but I really want to just encourage you, man. It's an open-ended promise. If you just honor him, he will honor you. And he doesn't put a limit on that. He doesn't put an amount on that. There are no limits, apparently. So let's just focus on honoring the Lord in our actions and our deeds, and then taking that same mindset and honoring our health, honoring God with our health, with our mouth, with our mindsets, with the things we focus on, with how we treat other people. I promise you, you'll never go wrong. Nothing bad ever came from trying to honor other people and honor the Lord with your life. Okay. So hopefully that's encouraging today. Speaking of sowing into our lives a little bit, I want to talk about the power of exercise and extending health and well-being. Okay. This is something that has been pretty prevalent as of late. And I think most people know that like exercise is good for you. You know, like, I mean, most people you would think that that's pretty intuitive, that exercise is good for you. But it seems that many people need convincing for whatever reason to exercise. So maybe if you're not convinced, or if you are convinced, maybe this little talk today will help you to either recommit to a pattern of taking care of your body and honoring the Lord with your body, or maybe you can double down and be reassured that what you're doing is actually good and helpful. Okay. So I've been reading a lot of the work of Dr. Peter Attia. He has a great book out called Outlive, which I highly recommend. It's a big book. It's not an easy read per se, but it is also it's a very informative book. He's very open. He's very open about what he knows and what he doesn't know, what the evidence does say and doesn't say. And he's also very open about his own mental health near the end of the book and some of the things that he struggled with. But he's kind of the longevity expert, or one of the leading voices in longevity right now. That seems to be relatively balanced in his approach. There are a few others like Dr. David Sinclair, who is saying he's in the longevity, which I think he truly believes he's in the longevity field, but has a very maybe lopsided view of longevity. And you can see that in some of the approaches he uses. Also, Dr. Walter Longo has some very lopsided approaches to it. But I really believe that at the end of the day, we're a very complex organism, and a balanced approach that kind of takes in multiple factors in life really does serve us in the best way. So Dr. Peter Attia, he's a prominent physician and a longevity expert. He asserts that exercise is the number one intervention for extending health. Like, I think he put it like, exercise is the most potent intervention that we have in our arsenal for longevity. So this bold statement is supported by a growing body of research and expert opinions from fields of medicine, physiology, and fitness. And, we'll dive into what Dr. Attia's perspective and how to incorporate what other sources and studies highlight as a myriad of benefits that exercise and resistance training have. So from Dr. Attia, like you can get this. I mean, he has a great podcast called The Drive. He has a great book, like I mentioned before. He also has a great website where you can read articles or get pay for better or more material. So he does have a subscription model, but he's a former surgeon and prominent researcher and podcaster. And he's been on the forefront of exploring strategies that promote health span. So he did a video some years back, where he kind of defined the difference between health span and lifespan. And that really changed my perspective a lot on my approach towards health. So rather than focusing so much on maybe these extremes, but really focusing on getting the most out of the years I do have. Instead of just trying to extend the years, I want to have the most health I can during those years. So that's where kind of a more holistic and comprehensive approach comes in, because it requires us to not just try to do one or two strategies, but to really learn how my body responds to certain things and start creating real strategies throughout my whole life, my lifestyle, not just how much do I work out, what do I eat, but like, how do I sleep? How do I manage stress? How much time do I spend with other people? What's my community look like? What's my meditation and prayer life look like? All of these factors go into creating more life in the years that I have. So that was very informative to me. But he says, one of the things he says, he believes that exercise is the single most potent intervention for achieving longevity or health span, more life in your years. And his assertion is grounded in some pretty good points. One point is mitochondrial health. Exercise stimulates mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are these little powerhouses in our cells, and the more they function well, usually the more health you have. We do know that exercise tends to be associated with improved mitochondrial function. So therefore, it is associated with longevity and overall health. So we do know that if your mitochondria start to go on the fritz, then there's a lot of cascading effect, namely cancer, that can start to start to crop up over time. We do know that like low carb diets tend to increase mitochondrial function as well. So we know exercise in particular improves it. So if you're questioning whether or not exercise is strong for your longevity, it literally changes you or improves you on a cellular level. Okay. It also, exercise increases your insulin sensitivity. Physical activity enhances insulin sensitivity, reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders. So we know, we're starting to learn from recent studies and through the field of science, health science in particular, that having good insulin control over time is a sign of metabolic health, and therefore a lower risk of lifestyle diseases that are killing many of us as Americans. I mean, right now, I think it's 80 something percent of Americans or Westerners have some form of metabolic dysfunction. And that usually starts with insulin resistance, which is we're basically consuming far too many carbohydrates and processed foods, to the exclusion of proteins and other high quality foods, so that our insulin levels stay at an elevated level. And then that begins to basically create an insensitivity where the body can no longer clear the blood sugar in an effective way. It begins to rise too much and it stays elevated and starts to create cascades. We believe that this is the beginning of metabolic disease, therefore diabetes, heart disease, and possibly Alzheimer's, which is considered diabetes, type 3 diabetes of the brain. So exercise in and of itself can increase that sensitivity. So just by exercising more, you're lowering your risk of all these other situations. Okay. Another key point is that exercise decreases inflammation overall. Like, so when you say like globally in the body, exercise in the moment increases inflammation because it is a stressor, but over time, it lowers total inflammation in the body, right? So that soreness you feel, that's inflammation in the muscle, right? But that's not acute. That's not staying for a long time or chronic. That's only there temporarily. The body heals it and then gets stronger and better because of it. So regular exercise has an anti-inflammatory effect, which can protect against chronic disease and improve overall well-being. So we know that inflammation in and of itself, which, insulin resistance causes a lot of this inflammation. So like inflammation in the joints can show up as arthritis, so we have to be careful with inflammation in and of itself. So having a good diet, but exercise is a great way to lower it. It also increases your brain health. Exercise promotes neuroplasticity, contributing to better cognitive function and reducing the risk of neurodegenerative diseases. So, like my grandparents both of my grandmothers had dementia. So it's very sad to watch people you love no longer recognize those who are closest to them. So this is pretty close to my heart. But they both used to do puzzles and things like that because the thought was if you use your brain, you're not going to lose your brain. But it seems that the brain is such a metabolically intense organ. So if you think about the brain is only about 2% of your total mass, but it uses like 20 to 25% of your total energy. Like your brain is by far the most expensive organ from a metabolic point of view. So if if puzzles, just using puzzles doesn't keep you from degenerating, then obviously it's not a usage issue. It's an external issue. It's like a metabolic issue. It's the way the body is interfacing with the brain. So apparently, going for an exercise, going regularly for runs or walks, and lifting weights regularly will increase the will increase the overall health of your body, lower inflammation, better insulin sensitivity, which in turn creates a better metabolic state for the brain. So the brain degenerating is not necessarily a loss of not it doesn't necessarily start with a loss of cognitive ability. It starts with insulin resistance, it seems, and poor metabolic health. Because if the brain is one of the most metabolically intense organs, having poor metabolic health means the brain is not going to function well. Okay, so you can do puzzles or Sudoku all day, but if you're not exercising, you're not creating the environment for the brain to stay healthy and strong. Okay, so supporting researchers also, we have supporting research and studies. Dr. Attia claims are substantiated by a wealth of scientific evidence. So, like for instance, your cardiovascular health. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine revealed that regular physical activity can significantly reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, the leading cause of death worldwide. Okay, so why is that? We know that it starts with poor metabolic health. So by having a great exercise plan, a resistance training plan, you are creating better cardiovascular health. Why? Because you're building muscle mass, you're building insulin sensitivity, you're creating an environment where energy is used well, not just stored. And all of the metabolic processes, you're constantly keeping those engines running rather than letting them idle and then die, right? So there's also cancer risk reduction. The American Cancer Society states that exercise can lower the risk of various cancers, including breast, colon, and prostate cancer. So I think there's a Dr. Thomas Seyfried. He's probably one of the most outspoken and not cutting edge, but maybe counterculture professors and doctors when it comes to cancer prevention. And he talks about how cancer requires glucose. So cells that become cancerous, the mitochondria stops functioning well, and they run on more of a glucose fermentation rather than off of maybe ketones or other fuel sources. So he said that by lowering your total glucose in your body, the amount of sugar that you're putting into your body, then you can starve cancer out to some extent. So I believe there's Dr. Don D'Agostino. He says the same thing. Both these guys are big proponents of low carb diets and maybe a ketogenic diet. So, but what is that mechanism we're talking about? We're talking about keeping blood sugar low. Exercise helps to keep blood sugar low, right? You use that energy. Sugar can be cytotoxic to the body, which is why there's so many processes to try to clear it from the bloodstream, right? This is why when people have rampant diabetes that's out of control, you can end up having neuropathy where you lose a foot, lose a limb, usually the lower extremities, because you get vascular constriction causes a lot of issues with blood flow, flesh ends up dying, things like that. That's also what happens with erectile dysfunction. Erectile dysfunction is actually possibly one of the first signs of for a male that you are insulin resistant, because the the veins and stuff in the penis cannot dilate because of inflammation, right, from insulin resistance. So if that's you, go get tested, my guy. But we know that cancer reduction, exercise can lower the risk of cancer. And I'm thinking that that mechanism may be that because we're using the energy we're taking in the form of energy for exercise, which keeps the blood sugar lower, which creates a much more positive environment in the body where metabolic disorder can't take place and cancer cells are less likely to form. This is just my assertion. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm trying to put pieces together here. All right. There's other evidence too that, exercise increases your mental health, which who doesn't need that nowadays? My God. A review in JAMA Psychiatry found that exercise is associated with a lower risk of depression and anxiety, making it a valuable tool for mental health. So we do know that exercise does increase dopamine output for when you do something that's difficult and you feel that reward, that, whoa, I did that reward of, success. That dopamine helps, but then also you're oxygenating the brain. You're creating a much more insulin sensitive environment for the brain so that it can operate properly. You're not just eating a bunch of trash all day and expecting all of your organs, your brain particularly, to function off of this trash that you're eating all day, right? The body is miraculous. It can do many things, but one thing it cannot do, it cannot take junk and create health. It can't do it. So you have to give it what it needs, all right? And exercise is one of those things. Exercise also increases bone density. So resistance training in particular is essential for maintaining and increasing bone density, reducing the risk of osteoporosis. So one thing that's interesting is in America alone, we consume more calcium than pretty much any other country in the world. And we have more osteoporosis than many of, comparable countries. Why is that? It's because calcium alone is not enough to keep your bones healthy. You need exercise and you need protein. So we're also extremely sedentary, which is why we're getting a lot of osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis can be part of aging. Bone thinning is part of aging. We get that. But you can slow that down through regular physical activity, creating pressure upon the bones to continue to form more bone in order to withstand that pressure, right? So it's very well proven that just even light exercise a couple times a week will increase your bone density. So if you're worried that when you age, you're going to break a bone, you're going to break a hip, spinach and milk are great, but exercise is far more superior, okay? Also, exercise obviously can help you manage your weight, okay? A comprehensive analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed that exercise plays a pivotal role in weight management and the prevention of diabetes. Again, think about what we're talking about here. Exercise has a pivotal role in weight management, okay? Why? One, it helps you burn calories, of course, but it creates an environment that is healthy, right? More muscle mass means a more metabolically active tissue. Just your body in general is more metabolically active. And it says it can help prevent obesity. Well, obesity is one of the products of insulin resistance and overconsumption of food just in general. So if we're creating a better environment for our bodies through exercise, then many of these lifestyle diseases that we seem to suffer from, and everybody's acting like we don't know where it came from, which, yeah, we do. We know exactly where it came from. But just by being active and using your body the way God created it to be used in some form, then you can stave off a ton of these issues, right? So, let's look at some of the benefits of exercise and resistance training in general. The advantages are manyfold, okay? Longevity. Regular physical activity has been linked with extended lifespan, okay? That should be a no-brainer, right? So if you want to live longer, you need to stop sitting on the couch so much and making excuses for yourself and go exercise. And one thing is your exercise doesn't have to be crazy. It just needs to be relatively consistent. Um, Weight control, obviously, we just talked about that. Cardiovascular health, we talked about that. One of the things that's interesting is having a good cardiovascular system is as positive for your longevity as smoking is negative for your longevity and health. So, literally, just having good cardiovascular health through regular walking, exercise, and getting out of breath, riding a bike, doing cardio here and there, on a regular basis. I think it's like there's like a 400% more positive effect. There's a 400% increase in longevity or something like that. Like basically the chances of you dying from anything decrease like many times over. Like the power of those of having good cardiovascular health is by far one of the strongest things you can do for your health in general, right? Obviously, then not smoking and drinking regularly and things like that. Like having good habits means something, but being in good cardiovascular health is one of the single most things you can do right now to improve your health. Okay. And when you go from zero to, if we're going from 0 to 10 when we're talking about total health, when you just going from 0 to 2, you will increase your metabolic health and chances of longevity substantially, like exponentially, and it starts to lessen as we get higher and more healthy, right? So obviously, metabolic health is a thing of exercise too. Why? Because we're creating an environment that keeps we're creating an environment that keeps these systems moving forward that being sedentary allows to atrophy. Okay. If you don't use muscles, you lose them. If you don't use your muscles and you overeat, you start creating an environment where you're storing in your fat cells and you're losing muscle mass at the same time. You get to the place where you start getting kind of intramuscular fat, which is like your legs and muscles start looking like Wagyu beef. This is an advanced sign of poor metabolic health. Okay. The less you use your muscles, usually the more you lose them. The more you lose them, the worse your metabolic health. So you start increasingly getting closer to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia. You start creating the environment where these things start to crop up. Okay. So exercise is not just about biceps and abs. It's literally about life. Your body needs it to survive. Okay. Mental well-being, obviously, lower depression and anxiety, which I've struggled with that for years. And exercise has always been a big help when it comes to keeping my thoughts and anxiety and depression kind of in check, right? Obviously, counseling and other things like that, and prayer and meditation really helps. But these things cannot be overstated, okay? Like, if exercise can improve everything, why are we not doing it? All right, everybody wants to talk about diet. Everybody wants to talk about diet because diet just requires a little commitment mentally. Diet doesn't make you sweat. Diet doesn't hurt, right? Exercise can hurt. Exercise can be painful. It can be inconvenient. But if it improves everything, what is the argument? I don't understand, Like I have people tell me I just don't have the energy. You don't have the energy because you're not doing it, right? You start exercising, you have the energy to do it. Exercise increases your muscle strength and endurance. It also increases your flexibility and balance. People don't realize that. Like, some people are like, well, what about stretching? Shouldn't I be stretching for my health? No, you don't have to stretch for your health. I'll be honest with you. Being flexible is not correlated with longevity, as far as I know. Um, Being strong is. Now, if you lift weights well with a full range of motion in a safe way, you actually get more flexible, right? So, like, think about it. Like, if you try to squat down all the way right now and like maybe just squat down and, put your hamstrings on your calves, you can do that and with no weight on your back, and you'll get so deep, right? You'll get pretty deep. But if you put weight on your back to do it, or weight in your hands like this, like a goblet squat, the weight in itself immediately creates more compression, more flexibility. So using weights actually makes you more flexible. It's not what people think, where it's like, oh, if I do weights, I'm just going to get muscle bound. You get muscle bound by not using full range of motion, right? I'm relatively big for my size, muscle wise, like compared to most men my age, but I'm very flexible as well. And I don't stretch very much. The only stretching I do is in the morning. I just kind of make sure that my low back is not tight and my hamstrings are relatively loose. So I just bend while my coffee's brewing, I just bend over and touch the floor, right? I just do my best, or I squat down for a few minutes. But I do jujitsu regularly. I'm a black belt in jujitsu. And regularly I do things that are quite flexible, right? And I don't work on my flexibility. It's because I use full range of motion under a weighted load. Also, balance. So doing any type of one-legged movement with resistance training creates balance. It makes you get stronger in an unstable position. Also, running, jumping, riding a bike creates balance. So as we age, balance does become an issue. All right. We have to work on these things. If you don't use it, you lose it. There's plenty of people I know who are getting a lot older now who, like, you can see, like, they stumble over a small rise on the ground. Like, if the concrete's not absolutely flat, they'll stumble over it. Well, why are you stumbling over basically level ground? Because you're not loading yourself, you're not practicing, you're not putting yourself in a position to get better. You're constantly just doing whatever the minimum is to get from here to there, right? So doing the minimum never got anybody any great results, okay? Immune function also is boosted through exercise. It makes your body more resilient to infection. As one coach that I know says, strong people are just harder to kill, and they're generally more useful. Okay, so during all of the COVID nonsense, which a lot of people lost friends and family, which I'm very sorry for that. But the majority of people who were passing away or having major complications were metabolically unhealthy to begin with. So their body was not in a place to fight off an infection of this kind. Some people had adverse reactions, more from just a genetic level, but many people who were particularly battling COVID in general were metabolically unhealthy. They had one or two poor health markers to begin with. So the body had a lower ability to fight off. The immune system was weaker, okay? Which is why they were telling you to use vitamin D and zinc, because those boost the immune system, okay? But you can get plenty of vitamin D if you just go outside and exercise. You get plenty of zinc if you eat, plenty of animal products. If you have oysters from time to time, like just smoked canned oysters have huge amounts of zinc. You don't even need to supplement it, but you can. So I cannot think of anything that exercise does not improve. So I'm not sure where the argument is for most people. It also reduces stress, which most of us nowadays are really battling with stress in general. So having a regular exercise plan with resistance training included, so cardio, some type of running, walking, biking, whatever, getting out of breath, combined with lifting weights, challenging your muscles to get stronger, challenging your muscles to get bigger, will lower your total stress, which apparently will lower your total inflammation, your total, your total risk for poor health in general. All right. So let me tell you, I have not found anything that exercise doesn't help. I just haven't found it. So, like Dr. Peter Attia, his assertions that exercise is the number one intervention for extending health, it finds strong support in scientific literature and the opinions of experts from various disciplines. Exercise, including both cardiovascular and resistance training, offers a multitude of benefits, from enhancing metabolic health to promoting mental health well-being, increasing longevity. Incorporating physical activity into your daily routine is not just a choice, it is a critical step towards a healthier, longer, and more fulfilling life. So why wait? Get moving and invest in your future well-being today, right? So we started this whole conversation off with honoring the Lord, honoring God with our body, taking the time to honor what he's done in your life through what you're doing in your own life, okay? Honoring other people, honoring those who maybe disagree with you, but treating people well, but most of all, treating yourself well, taking care of yourself, honoring your body, honoring the gift he's given you. You only have one body to live in. So you should honor that gift, and he will honor you for it, right? So exercise is a key component to you honoring the Lord with your body, and just in general, showing some gratitude for the life you've been given. All right. Now, do you have to start today with the most extreme thing? No, it can be as easy as just going for a walk. Like, go and listen to my podcast about the value of 3 10-minute walks a day, 3 10-minute walks. And if you can't do that, do 2, do 1, something. Start somewhere and start building. Once you start exercising, once you start moving, the goal just becomes on progressing. It just is like, hey, I just want to get better at this. I want to do a little bit more. I want to get a little bit stronger in this. I want to become more confident. I want this to become more of a part of my life, right? And the longer we do it, the more repetitions we get at it, the easier it becomes. It's like the more you keep sharpening the knife, if you have a good quality knife, the more you keep sharpening, eventually it gets so sharp that when it cuts you, you don't even feel it. So you don't even feel the pressure of it anymore. Okay? Until afterwards, and you're like, right? So if you keep sharpening day in and day out, eventually you get so sharp at it that you don't even feel it anymore. It just becomes part of who you are. It's your lifestyle. Okay? And I can guarantee you, God wants you. He wants you to honor your body. He gave you a purpose. He put you on this planet for a reason. There's no excuse. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be a little direct here. There's no excuse for you cutting your years short because you're scared, because you're frankly lazy, or because you're saying, I don't know how. Not knowing how is the dumbest excuse nowadays, because one thing we don't have is a lack of information. Okay. We are inundated with information. One thing I wish we had was less information. So it would be easier to deal with. But there's no reason for you not to be taking care of yourself. And if you're saying you don't have time, then you need to reevaluate your priorities and start making time, because time is the one thing that we all only have a limited amount of, and somehow other people get it done. So you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. If the mom of 4 who I'm working with can do it, then you can do it. Okay. Remember, you're worth it. The calling God's put on your life is worth it. And you just have to start taking a step. All right. So exercise is important. It improves almost every factor in your life. So don't neglect it. So thanks for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it wasn't too straightforward, but sometimes it has to be that way. I really appreciate everybody listening. If you'd like to check us out on Instagram at Adam Bro. I put up content every couple days or multiple times, probably 4 or 5 times, 6 times a week sometimes. Continue to listen to the podcast, share it with others if you can. Would really love that. I also have a book, Faith and Fitness. It's on Amazon. You can order it on Kindle. You can order the e-reader version, or you can order a paperback version. It's very affordably priced, $10 for Kindle and $15 for the paperback version. I would really love for you to get a copy of that and just help us to continue to, share God's love and grace towards those in leadership in churches, but then also other believers who just need to take care of their bodies and realize that God's put you here for a reason. There's a purpose in this. So let's take care of the one body we have, because it's the only place we have to live. And it's the only vehicle he's given you to do his will, right? So take care of yourself. Hopefully you have a great week, and we'll talk soon.